Consideration, our 9:45 a.m. item, consideration of continuation of an emergency declaration for drought conditions. The presentation that we just received was to inform us on the status of our current drought of where we are in comparison to when we had a drought in 21-22 when we did declare this emergency, and seeing if it's the impacts of getting rid of this emergency or if it needed continuation. And so open it up for discussion. Actually, real quick before we do start, I want to add something. It was highlighted that we had passed a hydrology necessity based on the drought, and that was mentioned that if the declaration goes away, that goes away as well, with discretion still within the power of the department to be able to request hydrology reports. But we also did pass a water truck ordinance, as we had some issues with water trucks just in general during the drought, and the concern of how they were being utilized and moving water around our county. So that's another one that would be impacted that was not highlighted in the presentation. Just wanted to make sure and add that to the conversation. And so any comments or questions regarding the emergency proclamation? Supervisor Green.
Yeah, just a couple bullet points. So in the staff report that is attached with all our agenda items, I just, to my knowledge, the text of that staff report is basically the original staff report that was filed in 2021 when the original emergency declaration was enacted. So if there's any fresh information, I just want to point out that particular staff report doesn't have any, and I'm interested to see what type of departmental input we may be able to get today. The previous presentation kind of highlighted the various county departments that may have some intersection with drought response, and I didn't see anything in that presentation that indicated an ongoing need for this emergency proclamation. So in my own mind, as I've kind of parsed this issue, and I did request this come off consent a couple months ago, no doubt the 2021 drought was serious and deserved all due consideration and response. No doubt we're going to have future droughts, but we are now 3 years past the passage of this original emergency proclamation. The lake is full. We have no people living with drought within the county. And so it raises a valid question, when is enough? When does the emergency actually end and we continue the hard work that we need to do on drought planning, but we don't have to do it on an emergency footing based on an emergency proclamation describing conditions that no longer exist in the county, right? So there will be future droughts, but if you were to ask me today, and based on the previous report, is there a drought in Lake County presently sufficient that we need to continue this drought proclamation today, I would say no. Also, it wasn't mentioned in the staff report again because that staff report is 3 years old. There are two ordinances that were passed in 2021 on an urgency basis by this board in response to the then drought emergency. Just for clarification, the enhanced water analysis ordinance is 3106, and the amended water hauler ordinance is 3113. I did reach out briefly. There's only 3 licensed water haulers in the county. Some of them don't even do all that much work in the county, and they were either unaware of the ordinance or it had no impact on their operations because they don't serve agricultural operations. So all props for a appropriate drought response in 2021 when we needed that all hands on deck. But I'm proposing today that we sunset this emergency proclamation. And if there's any questions about the potential impacts on funding or on these urgency ordinances that were passed, I guess staff is available to answer those questions. But I'm very comfortable sunsetting this today.
Thank you for your comments. Anything further from the board?
Are we hearing from the auditor?
Ms. Dakota Hockett is here, if you'd like to come up,
Okay,
please.
great.
My name is Dakota Hockett. I'm the Emergency Event Fiscal Manager for the Disaster Response and Recovery Budget Unit held within the Auditor Controller's Office. Per Government Code Section 8685.4, the local emergency proclamation is a prerequisite to apply for financial assistance to the state. It is not something that has to, so it comes before, it doesn't necessarily have to keep continuing after. And then per Government Code Section 8630D, at the earliest possible date that conditions warrant, we should probably terminate the local proclamation. And so if conditions are not persisting, then it is not required for funding to continue.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
I will say that does defer a little bit from prior conversations. I don't know if Cal OES has a specific reason for why they stated what they stated, or if we misunderstood, but I know that prior conversations were that Cal OES is requesting that we continue our emergencies despite the government code that says otherwise. So I don't mind moving forward today with whatever the board decides, but if it's possible to just always triple check with those that would be doing the reimbursement and signing off and making sure that that government code is the way that they abide to, that would be great.
So after doing some research and looking into it, I think it's a matter of, one, shifting or differing employees that we get at Cal OES, and so changing guidance. And then the other fact is we've had fire disasters, we've had epidemics, we've had water, and so there's so many different varieties of disasters that there's no way to treat each one the same. And so sometimes we might have been told something for one event, and then we took that rule forward and we carried it because that's what we were told. There's also the fact that we can get fire management assistance grants, which are different than public assistance grants, which are different than hazard mitigation grants, even though they're all coming from the same funding source. So I believe it came from a matter of abundance of caution.
Right.
No point in jeopardizing millions of dollars.
Okay, I have a follow-up question. So yes, a lot of turnover at Cal OES these days. It's really hard to follow what's going on there. The Hitch proclamation references the drought proclamation, and so does that need to be rewritten, or is it fine to stand alone?
So I've not really been involved in the Hitch emergency, so I don't want to speak on it. I would recommend, if you guys have been assigned a Cal OES representative for that disaster or for that event, I would talk to them specifically because I'm not even sure how far in the application process the Hitch emergency is at.
Would Water Resources like to speak to that or no? I saw facial expressions.
The Hitch emergency didn't involve Cal OES, so I'm not sure how that would impact this. I will say that the Hitch emergency proclamation is useful for projects that we've been funded, and there's still potential for projects that we could use that. I think, I don't know about having the item in there that references the drought ordinance, but maybe you can do the same thing that Gavin Newsom did and just rewrite it, replace it with different language and refer to the state drought proclamation, which would be the -7-55 thing.
Okay, because it's the first whereas.
Yeah, no, there's definitely some interconnectedness, and I think my personal opinion is with the executive order that states the need to do work on the Hitch, I think by itself stands alone to get all the support that we've been getting. And so maybe revising it so that we can make sure that it stands on its own here for our declared emergency. That way we can make sure that it can continue. Anything further? Supervisor Green, is your pen still up or new?
This is new, just because I'm educating myself, and we all are. So I understand reluctance to upset the apple cart if there's any funding in play here. But again, we're talking about an emergency proc. In this case, it is 3 years old. And so going back to the government code site that Dakota gave us, procs are prerequisite. They state the conditions at the time. They state an actual condition of emergency. And if that moves us into a position to get a certain bucket of money or two, that's fine. They should not be viewed as money-making tools, evergreen things that just stay there without having direct and actual knowledge that a funding stream may be threatened. So part of my education has been to show a little patience if we are actually able to identify funding streams that we are actually tied to. But I also want to use this as a teachable moment to say there's a limit to this. And if we don't have, it's much easier to get an emergency proc on agenda than it is to get it off. And that's because we have a mechanism through OES or whatever agency to bring an emergency proc, but we don't have a review process in place and no clear authority among departments to handle that review process. So that's just it. So if there's something we need to clarify in the hitch proc, if we need to cite to a revised emergency order, I think that California backing off most of its drought restrictions a full year ago should have triggered some response on the local level for us to review our stuff, and that just didn't happen. So I just want to distinguish in my own mind as I continue down this, if there's an emergency, let's keep it stated and let's keep the proc on point. But if the state of emergency itself has passed, and we're not going to lose a big bucket of money if we sunset the proc, then let's just get on with it,
Okay, well, we're just untangling things today. That's all we're doing. So I just want to confirm, because it was brought up earlier with the tree mortality emergency, and I don't know if you want to speak to that or if Stephen's available. Because I think we're okay with that one, but I just want to make sure that it's on the record here and we're all on the same page.
We can come back with that. Stephen's not here today.
Oh, he's not here today. Okay. Well, then he told me on Friday that it was fine. And he had a conversation with Genevieve too about it. So I think that we are okay. I just wanted to make sure that we are hitting all the threads that we had brought up and we were concerned about. I appreciate the presentation and it all laid out in the spreadsheet so that we can move forward knowing that we're in good shape here.
Thank you very much. Vice Chair Crandall?
Yes, I just wanted to highlight and appreciate the presentation before this because it gives a lot of weight to the discussion. Plus, just thinking about in regards to sunsetting and a plan for the future, we do know that at specific times previous there, with the fires happening, scarring and burning vegetation that took place. When it grows back, at the time, when you look back to after the Mendocino Complex fire, I remember going out to Lake Pillsbury and it was really full, and that was because there was no vegetation to basically draw from the water table. And so now when you have the vegetation intact, what you have now is less water coming to the channels. And so I think with the plan that we're talking about, it looks like we can ensure that we can do the vegetation work that if we don't tend to it, eventually will likely put us in another situation. And it's not the sole solution or anything like that, but it's a contributing factor, just like when we talk about other situations. But getting this vegetation work, including that in the plan, talking about different things to ensure we mitigate future drought conditions, knowing that we're in a climate change situation. So I just wanted to highlight that really helps, and I would like to work on updating these plans and whatnot as well. So.
Thank you for your comment. I think this is a shift in what we've typically done, and I think it's with the new information, it feels comfortable to move forward with the change. What I'd like is for that similar new outlook on how emergencies are being handled by Cal OES to maybe get either an updated memo or a timed item to review the other items that are over a year old and obviously completed as far as the emergency goes, and maybe still need to remain because of whatever funding mechanisms are being impacted by it, or need to be closed out because Cal OES is not needing us to keep it open. Because we do have a list of, I want to say 5 others on there, some more recent than others. Yes.
I have an
Gail Barker.
update I received from the Auditor Controller Harrington stating that the tree mortality documents will be updated to refer to the state, and that will take care of that item as far as securing or making sure it doesn't conflict with anything that Cal OES requires.
Okay. Does the Hitch proclamation then also need to be updated?
Oh, I didn't get that. Just one moment, I'll be back.
And I think that we can wait till the next time that it's continued. That'll give us time to ensure that the language is correct to whatever is needed. But I think, again, new information with a different perspective from Cal OES leads us to different types of actions here, rather than what we've been doing for a while when it comes to our emergency proclamations.
One more thing. I think yesterday when we were at the Middle Creek Restoration meeting, we were speaking with some staff from the Upper Lake Tribe, and they had mentioned that with Clover Creek and the gate being closed, it lessened the amount of water that went through and potentially harming the spawning and the eggs of the spawning season and whatnot. So, but that's of course naturally through this time through summer, of course. So that's a thought process as well. When it comes to water, providing for the survival of the hitch. But that's the only thing I remember talking about with anyone when it came to that situation, but not necessarily the proclamation. But just wanted to note that.
Yeah, that was the dewatering due to the closure of the gates.
Right.
Yeah. Well, thank you for bringing that up. I do want to check in, and I don't know if Lieutenant Wells is here to speak for the Sheriff's Department, but this is a sheriff declaration. I want to make sure to check in with the original author and check to see if there is approval or reasons to continue. Approval to deny and allow it to expire or need to continue.
Morning, Board. Lieutenant Gavin Wells, Deputy Director of County OES. Speaking with Sheriff Howe, we have no opposition to discontinuing the emergency ordinance. I also received information that Cal OES has provided that most other operational areas, being the counties, will leave their proclamations in place as long as they're until the recovery process has ended for fires and floods, or until the funding stream has ended, which it sounds like is the case on both of these.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your comment. So let's open it up for the public. I see we have a hand up in Zoom. Let's go ahead and start there with Brett.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
All right. Yeah, how you guys doing?
We're doing great. If you can please get to your comment, that would be great.
Yeah, so I was just making sure you guys got my appeal for the code enforcement taking my RV.
So that this is not this item. Right now, we are talking about a declared emergency due to drought. If it's related to the code enforcement item further on an agenda, you're going to have to remain patient, and we will get there. We will get to you. We have call-in user 1.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Board. My name is Angela Amaral. I just wanted to clarify, Chair Sabatier, you brought up a good point about the water hauler ordinance, and knowing that what the problem was and why that ordinance was needed in the first place. Can you clarify, will that ordinance, is it able to stand alone? Will you guys be revisiting, implementing something if this does expire? We don't want to go through the same hassles that we had in the past. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question. At this moment in time, I think that we have the possibility of bringing back a truck ordinance if we feel that that is needed, but with the action taken today of allowing it to expire, it would expire simultaneously. And I'll look at Mr. Guintavano to see if that was a correct statement to make based on the ordinance, the way it was written.
Yes, it's self-executing as far as it makes reference to the expiration of that. For purposes of the use of that term expiration, it would be synonymous to the board terminating.
If you can speak in the microphone, I think he's got it really loud.
Yeah. So for purposes of the term being used in those two ordinances, the term termination or expiration, it is synonymous to the board effectively terminating the local emergency should your board decide to do so.
Thank you very much. And just also mention, there were no violations, citations, or any of the kind due to the ordinance that was passed. It was definitely meant as a message to make sure to follow the rules, such as who to deliver to and so on and so forth. Again, something that can be brought back, but that would expire with the expiration of this declared emergency. I see no further hands up in Zoom. Anybody here in the chamber wish to speak on this item? Please come on up.
Good morning. Sharon Zoller. I'm the chairperson of the Ag Advisor Committee. We submitted a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors to sunset this, and thank you for your consideration as you deliberate this. Also, thank you to the departmental staff for their reports, and a special thank you to Jordan from the Resource Department for jumping on a call in like zero notice to help us with clarification. So we strongly recommend that you sunset this. Thank you.
Ms. Beaton is outstanding. Thank you for your comment. Any further comments in the public? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board.
We don't have a recommended motion, but if I were to make a motion, is a motion needed at all? If no action is taken, would it sunset by our inaction?
And in reviewing the resolution that proclaimed the local drought emergency, the one that's tied in with the Sheriff's Office declaration, it does state that this local emergency shall be deemed to continue to exist until its termination is proclaimed by the Board of Supervisors at intervals of no more than 30 days. So it would be, if your board chooses to do so, it would be by motion to terminate the declared local emergency due to drought conditions declared by the Sheriff's Office on May 6, 2021, and as ratified by your board on May 11, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries. Thank you for the conversation.
And just so I can explain, I'd like
Please.
to have a plan, like we talked about, with the sunset in place, to keep it going until the plan's in place, rather than just coming out of it and then creating a plan, if that makes any sense.
You're talking about the drought mitigation plan itself?
Right.
Yeah. It's a plan that would definitely be helpful for, unfortunately, our next drought, which we all know we will experience at one point or another in the near future.